All right, let's jump right into this. For this explainer, I want you to indulge me for a second and let me step into a slightly different role. Imagine me wrapped in shadows, speaking to you directly as the Shadow Reaper. Welcome to the mythological theater of the Crimson Star. Today we're exploring what is essentially a dark, cautionary fairy tale. It's a 5-act cycle of active negation that just completely deconstructs how we view human meaning. So forget your standard stories of heroes and villains, okay? This is a cosmic play where existence itself is literally put on trial. And honestly, I want to hook you right off the bat with this incredibly chilling quote. Listen to that. A brightly colored scarf wrapped around a universe that has no heartbeat. It perfectly establishes the cold, completely indifferent setting of our tale, a place known as the pulpit of the perished stars. The imagery here is absolutely crucial. That brightly colored scarf is literally everything we humans build. It's our art, our legacies, our meaning. We wrap it so tightly around ourselves, but underneath, there is no heartbeat. The universe is indifferent. And that is the stage where our tragic play unfolds. Act 1, The Great Noon and the Roast Beast. Here, the Crimson Star sits at the absolute zenith of the heavens, representing a moment of peak human hubris. And right on cue, onto this stage walks our protagonist, the Seeker of the Valley. But they aren't traveling light. They're carrying this incredibly heavy burden known as the Roast Beast. Now, the Seeker genuinely believes this massive feast is a mighty fortress against the dark, but really, it's just a metaphor for the heavy burden of our constructed meanings. Think about the grand stories we tell ourselves, right? The statues we build, the legacies we desperately hope will outlast us. The Seeker uses this feast to basically hide from the yawning abyss of an empty universe. They think they're the lead actor in a play of their own making. Let's actually look at the components of this Feast of Hubris. These are the brightly colored scarves we all wear every single day. Let me just break the fourth wall for a second and ask you directly, do you carry these around too? I mean, how much of your life is spent trying to build legacies meant to outlast death? Are these grand stories and myths just heavy, hollow things we use to distract ourselves from the void? Well, the Seeker certainly thinks their feast is real and meaningful. But, as you'll see, a pretty harsh awakening is coming. Act 2, The Indifferent Mephistopheles and the Terminal Wager. The spotlight shifts to the wings of the stage where the Red Spectre watches. To really get what the Red Spectre is about, we need to compare him to classic literature. You know Goethe's Mephistopheles from Faust, right? That classic tempter who offers pleasure, seeks a higher path, and essentially acts like human souls have some sort of bargaining value. Well, our Red Spectre completely subverts that expectation of redemption. He operates with total, icy indifference. He doesn't want your soul. He doesn't offer a higher path. Instead, he enforces a terminal wager, ensuring that absolutely all human achievement eventually sets in a pool of gore. Which brings us to the core of the Spectre's wager. He enforces what's known as the Great Fast upon the Seeker. And this is brutal. It means stripping away that roast beast, ripping off that brightly colored scarf, and forcing the Seeker to literally swallow the taste of sheer nothingness. It's that horrific, gut-wrenching realization that this grand fortress of meaning they've spent their whole life building, it's just floating in a void. The anchor has no bottom. There is absolutely no foundation to any of it. Act 3, Architects of the Void. The Seeker's feast is vanishing, which means it's time to clear the stage. This is where I step in. Let me introduce myself as the Shadow Reaper, alongside my counterpart, the Grindnash. We are the architects of the void, and our domains are incredibly precise. The Grimgnash is the sovereign of active destruction. He's the internal architect. He walks right behind the Seeker, systematically shattering delusions and uncreating their safe sanctuaries. And then there's me. As the Shadow Reaper, I represent the logic of zero. I am the master of the flesh. I wait patiently at the edge of the field, and once the Gnash shatters the mind, I harvest the husks. I finish what is called the red chapter with permanent ink. Together, we clear a stage for performance that is, frankly, already over. To really grasp how the Grimgrash operates, you have to understand his method. He tests the Seeker's existence using the honest sound. Now, this isn't some grand theatrical orchestral crash, no. It's just a heavy, dull thud that literally swallows light. Just imagine a sound so dense, so terrifyingly devoid of any echo, that it proves to the Seeker in an instant that their fortress is entirely hollow. Act 4, The Theatrical Metaphor and the Lunar Mirror. As the Nash and I clear the stage, we look far above the pulpit to find the imp. The imp serves as a cosmic mirror for all of us toiling below. Let's walk through this tragic progression to see exactly what the imp sees.
First, the seeker arrives, so immensely proud of their fortress of meaning. Second, the specter coldly enforces the great fast. Third, the architects, myself and the Grash, labor to tear it all down. But step 4? That's the ultimate revelation. The imp looks down at all of this, the seeker's pride, the specter's indifference, the Grash's exhausting labor, and just mocks it, because it's all just scripted gestures. The imp reveals the ultimate illusion. The house is empty, and the audience will never, ever arrive. You see, the imp doesn't labor at all. It just sits up there in the lunar heights, and its only reaction is laughter. Laughter that sounds exactly like breaking glass. It mocks the entire theater. Because even our act of negation, even the destruction of meaning that the Nash and I perform, is just a performance in a theater that was never meant to have an audience. The universe isn't just indifferent to the seeker, it's completely indifferent to the entities tearing the seeker down too.
Act 5, The Lunar Runes and the Eternal Return. The performance has concluded in total silence. There's no applause here.
There's no redemptive curtain call, and no chorus mysticus to sing the seeker to rest. There is only the trap. This inescapable script relies on a very precise sequence. When the seeker is left with absolute 0, step 1 happens. The stage completely resets. Step 2, the imp carves a glowing silver rune right into the obsidian floor. And step 3, the crimson star simply waits. This is exactly how the crimson star creates a cycle of endless, repetitive misery.
Now, those glowing silver runes carved into the floor, don't mistake them for symbols of enlightenment. They aren't lessons learned for the next lifetime. Actually, they are permanent, glowing reminders of the soul's endless hollowing. It is a nightmare that simply refuses to stay dead. The seeker is completely destined to return, proud and burdened with a brand new roast beast, entirely ignorant of the runes right beneath their feet, ready to repeat the exact same tragic script.
Which brings us to the end of this explainer, and I want to leave you with a question that's frankly been haunting me. We've walked through this dark fairy tale, we've seen the void architects at work, and we've stared right into the illusion of the empty house. So, look at your own constructed meanings. Look at your own legacy. When the crimson star rises again, and the great noon arrives, will your brightly colored scarf be enough to hold back the dark? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and keep seeking the truth behind the slides.